Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I am Chad Headley.
And I'm Faithless Forrest, and we want you to know that if you don't believe in God, you're not alone. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and for people committed to a life rooted in science and free of supernatural beliefs.
On today's show, we have a phone-in guest, author, blogger, and senior research director for the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, Chris Rodda.
But first, we want to tell you a little bit about the sponsors of our show.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville frequently has a fun meetup at a bar or eatery. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's in the Old City, starting around 5:30. Look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table. And as Matt Dillahunty at Atheist Experience says, everyone is welcome to our happy hour for food, drink, and conversation. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings of the month are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussions. The second Sunday, we hold the Skeptics Book Club. And on the fourth Sunday, we're mixing it up sometimes with a get-together we call Reflections, which is maybe a potluck afternoon lunch at someone's home, or we occasionally get together and play board games or similar activities. And now and then we have a blood drive, too.
Later in the show, we will give you our websites to visit for additional details, including times and locations.
All right. So today's August 11th, 2015. Robert G. Ingersoll was born in Dresden, New York, 182 years ago today in 1833.
Known as the Great Agnostic, Ingersoll toured the country speaking on Freethought. He spoke for hours at a time to large crowds in the days before there was electronic amplification for the human voice. Some of his lectures about the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible are collected as Some Mistakes of Moses. We would like to read you a short chapter to give you a flavor of the Great Agnostic. Let's alternate, shall we? You start, please.
Okay. So this is called Inspired War. It's a chapter from Some Mistakes of Moses. If the Bible be true, God commanded his chosen people to destroy men simply for the crime of defending their native land. They were not allowed to spare trembling and white-haired age, nor dimpled babies clasped in their mother's arms. They were ordered to kill women and to pierce with the sword of war the unborn child. Our, quote, Heavenly Father, unquote, commanded the Hebrews to kill the men and women, the fathers, sons, and brothers, but to preserve the girls alive. Why were not the maidens also killed? Why were they spared? Read the 31st chapter of Numbers, and you will find that the maidens were given to the soldiers and the priests. Is there in all the history of war a more infamous thing than this?
Is it possible that God permitted the violets of modesty that grow and shed their perfume in the maiden's heart to be trampled beneath the brutal feet of lust? If this was the order of God, what under the same circumstances would have been command of a devil? When in this age of a world, a woman, a wife, a mother reads this record, she should with scorn and loathing throw the book away. A general who now should make such an order, giving over to massacre and raping a conquered people, would be held in execration by the whole civilized world. Yet if the Bible be true, the supreme and infinite God was once a savage.
A little while ago, out upon the western plains, in a little path leading to a cabin, were found the bodies of 2 children and their mother. Her breasts were filled with wounds received at the defense of her darlings. They had been murdered by the savages. Suppose when looking at their lifeless forms, someone had said, "This was done by the command of God." In Cana, there were countless scenes like this. There was no pity in inspired war. God raised the black flag and commanded his soldiers to kill even the smiling infant in its mother's arms. Who is the blasphemer? The man who denies the existence of God, or he who covers the robes of the infinite with innocent blood?
We are told in the Pentateuch that God, Father of us all, gave thousands of maidens after having killed their fathers, their mothers, and their brothers to satisfy the brutal lusts of savage men. If there be a God, I pray him to write in his book, opposite my name, that I denied this lie for him.
And I say, put my name in that book too. All right, so that was a sample of Freethought from the 1880s. Imagine that. All right. Well, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster reports that on August 5th, a U.S. Coast Guard Master Chief Petty Officer Bob retired from the Coast Guard.
An ordained minister in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, he was presented with a colander bearing his Coast Guard rank insignia during his retirement. A Festivus pole was present during the ceremony. Ramen.
Wow, how nice. Well, I guess is Pope Francis. He is a scientist, he's a chemist, and he declares that the Big Bang and the theory of evolution are real. How nice of him.
Pope Benedict XVI had previously given some credit to evolution, but continued to deny Darwinism. Pope Francis explained that scientific theories and creationist theories are no longer incompatible, but that scientific theories required a creator to set things in motion.
An interesting point that isn't addressed here is how this impacts support for creationism, young earth creationism, and the whole story of original sin.
Without original sin, what was there for Jesus to die?
I've seen these Facebook memes that said, go out and sin. You don't want Jesus to have died for nothing, after all. All right. Who's up? Me, you?
In more current news, former UT volunteer football player and now National Football League professional Arian Foster is openly secular.
The Knoxville News-Sentinel reports the upcoming August 19 ESPN magazine will have an interview with Arian. They quote the interview where Arian's brother refers to him as the is it Tybo or Tebow?
I believe it's Tebow.
Tebow, all right.
Play safe out there, Arian.
Yeah, be on the watch for Christian love and charity.
And the developing stories in Tennessee and elsewhere.
The online news, Pink News, reports on developments in Kentucky where the Democratic governor, Steve, I'm not sure I might mangle this name, Beshear, has ordered all clerks to obey the Constitution, and I should say, and the Supreme Court, and allow same-sex weddings.
He said, when you voluntarily decide to run for office and you win, you raise your hand and you take the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. That oath doesn't say, I will uphold the parts of the Constitution that I agree with and won't with the parts that I don't agree with.
The Pink News reports that clerk Kim Davis filed a lawsuit against Governor Steve Beshear for infringing on her religious freedom after he instructed the state's county clerks to either issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples or resign.
The Associated Press reports that Ohio Supreme Court's Board of Professional Conduct issued the ruling Friday after a Toledo judge who refused to perform same-sex weddings asked the board to clarify his duties. Municipal Judge C. Allen McConnell said he didn't marry a same-sex couple because of his religious beliefs after the U.S. Supreme Court made gay marriage legal in all 50 states in July. McConnell said Monday he would abide by the board's opinion.
All right, so after being reminded by his superiors of his oath of office, apparently he's going to fulfill it. All righty. Well, viewers, today we have with us via telephone technology author, blogger, and senior research director for the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, Chris Rodda. Chris, did I mangle your name or anything?
Yeah, actually, it's Rodda.
Rodda. I always have to ask. I don't spell well, and that turns into my inability to pronounce strange words as well. I'll try and be more cautious.
This is a call-in show, so we would invite you to participate. Bring your questions to our guest by calling the number on your screen.
All right, so Chris, you're there, and And you're hearing us loud and clear. I guess that's what my notes
Yeah.
here are supposed to make sure. All right. So in past shows, we have spoken about the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, but we must assume that there are some first-time viewers. So can we get you to tell us about the organization? You know, I've copied some stuff here off of your website, and if you got something like that you want to tell us or go off on whatever you think's important, please do so.
Well, basically, we are the only religious freedom organization that specifically addresses the problems in the military. So that we get, by some of our enemies, we get called the ACLU of the military. Now, that's like by the people who say the ACLU is evil. But basically, while the other organizations might have a military case here or there, that is all we do. And protect the constitutional rights of our servicemen and women and civilians working on military bases, veterans. And what surprises a lot of people is that although we get constantly called an atheist organization by people who, you know, Fox News and whatever, people who, that's a bad thing, that 96% of our clients are actually Christians. They're just not the fundamentalist variety, and they get as much harassment and run into as many problems with the proselytizing and all of that as people of minority religions, atheists, agnostics, or whatever. So it's pretty much been steady since the foundation was formed almost 10 years ago that 96% of the people who come to us for help are actually Christians of some sort.
In other words, you're protecting some denomination of Christians from another denomination of Christianity. Did I paraphrase that fairly? Chris, have we lost you? Hello, Chris. We're not hearing you. All right. Well, viewers, this is live television, but luckily we have a backup here in the form of my phone, and with anything like luck, I will try and raise Chris again.
Call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message.
And if we're not successful immediately with that, I'm going to interview my co-host here. Chad, you were in the military, were you not?
I was.
Can you tell me and your viewers what was your... Okay, well, maybe we've got the call here. Hello, this is Freethought TV. Can we get a name or a nickname?
Hey, this is Chris, your guest that just got cut off.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for calling in. Yeah. For the viewers' benefit, we arranged that if we were to lose the cell phone connection, she would just call in on our landline. So viewers, you're going to have to settle for viewing, and we won't be able to take calls at this time. So, I'll confess, where were we, Chris, when you last heard us?
I was saying that the thing about that surprisingly 96% of our clients are actually Christians of some sort.
All right, and I was paraphrasing that by saying, so you're protecting Christians of one denomination from another, and I asked you to confirm, and that's when we realized you were gone.
Right, and basically, you know, if you think about it, if we solve a problem, if there's a problem at a base, if we solve that problem because some, you know, liberal, undesirable Christians are being harassed by the fundamentalists, that problem is then also solved for the atheists on that base, and vice versa. If we solve a problem for an atheist client, that problem is solved for the Christians or minority religions. And often service members will come to us as a group, making a complaint about something that's going on, and you might have, say, 20 members of, you know, the Air Force at this one base will contact us, and like 16 of them will be Christians, or, you know, somewhere in that range, 16, 17, maybe an atheist in there, you know, someone of another religion, but it's just held steady that 96%. And Because, you know, there are an awful lot of Christians out there that fight for separation of church and state as hard as, you know, free thinkers, secularists, atheists, whatever. And, you know, it's just a thing that surprises a lot of people.
Chris, can I ask, is it often because of something that the chaplaincy is doing, or is it maybe the non-chaplaincy? Or is there
We get cases of both.
a mix, I could imagine? Does one predominate? I guess that's where I was going with the question.
We get cases of both. We get chaplains say they're doing a you know, mandatory prayer at a formation, and they say something that's just offensive to a lot of people, or sometimes it is a commander. Sometimes it's somebody's superior in a meeting that's supposed to be a, you know, non-religious setting. It can be, there's just such a wide variety of situations in which this stuff happens that they're, you know, they're all different.
All right. So we started talking about that in our FF, but can we ask you to tell the viewers, how did you get involved with this organization?
Well, back in 2006, I had written my book, Liars for Jesus, which debunks the Christian nationalist historical lies and myths, people like David Barton. And then not long after that, I started writing on the website talktooaction.org. And one of the pieces I wrote in the spring of 2007 was that about in the junior ROTC, the high school ROTC, core curriculum American history textbook, there was an article by David Barton, who, if people don't know who he is, he's the king of the history revisionists, the guy who got the history textbooks changed down in Texas so that people will now be learning that Moses was one of the founding fathers and all that. An essay by him on the myth of separation of church and state was being taught to high school ROTC students. And a volunteer for Murph caught that article and thought Mikey Weinstein, the head of Murph, would be interested in it, and connected the two of us. And basically, he needed researchers. I needed a job. I thought it was going to be temporary, and here we are over 8 years later, and I am still with Murph.
All righty, and just so that our viewers are clear on this, Moses probably wasn't at the Constitutional Convention now, was he?
I didn't see him in any of the paintings, except that one by those Mormons, the ones where they got all the, the painting I'm talking about.
There's one with a lot of winged angels.
With the winged angels and, yes, everybody from Abraham Lincoln to Jesus to whoever. Yeah, other than that, there is no proof that Moses was at the Constitutional Convention.
I wonder if the Flying Spaghetti Monster was there hovering with his noodly appendage over their pens and guiding them in the...
Well, they did actually eat pasta back, but then by that time, I think.
All right, well, that's good to know.
They also smoked weed, as far as I've heard, all that hemp, you know. So,
yeah.
Okay, we're digressing here.
Well, it's funny. Your interest in history dovetails with mine, and I was about to tell you about a radio program we have on the air here, and viewers in the East Tennessee area might want to listen to. It's on the East Tennessee public radio station up out of the Tri-Cities area. I think it's like 85.5, but they have a program called Your Weekly Constitutional, and it's hosted by Stuart Harris, and it's fascinating to listen to him. He talks about how, I think it's Thomas Jefferson and others were very keen in establishing a wine industry here in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't think about them as being someone, maybe who were going to be involved in the industrialization of winemaking, but it did begin to happen even with them.
George Washington had a distillery at Mount Vernon. He had He was making whiskey.
Making whiskey.
Making whiskey.
I believe they have rebuilt something like that, and they're selling something again to approximate his product.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. So if you have reason to travel up there, and if you get there before me, you call and let me know what it was like.
So in other words, if you go to Mount Vernon, have a designated driver.
I would buy it and treasure it. All right. Well, goodness, I've drug us off into history things. Chad, save me here.
Chris, how long has Murph been around?
It was since about, well, I guess it would have been the late 2005. It was, Mikey Weinstein's sons were at the Air Force Academy, and he found out about the discrimination they were facing there, and it all, the pressure, it was at the time that that movie, you know, the Mel Gibson one, The Passion of the Christ, or as Mikey calls it, the Jesus Chainsaw Massacre. The Air Force Academy was promoting that to the point of the Jewish cadets being harassed as they killed Jesus and all of that sort of stuff. And Mikey started looking into this because, you know, his sons were at the academy, and quickly found out that this was not just a problem at the academy, it was military-wide, and decided to found this organization.
His sons were the target of verbal abuse, or was it worse than that?
Verbal abuse, pressure from their superiors, you know, just the kind of stuff you would expect. I mean, the promotion of the Passion of the Christ, it was just, you know, they were playing clips of it on the overhead TV screens where the cadets were eating, putting flyers for it on their plates, had posters plastered everywhere, and emails from superiors encouraging the cadets to attend the movie, and of course, emails from a superior encouraging a subordinate to do something is not really taken as a suggestion. You know, I mean, it's so anyway. That's what started it. That's what made Mikey aware of the problem, and then to find out that it's a military-wide problem.
Is there any point in the military career of a chaplain where the U.S. military states or implies or even infers that the chaplain has the right to decide whom he or she will provide services to?
No. I mean, a chaplain never has to do something that goes against their particular denomination or religion's beliefs. But they have the responsibility to refer somebody to someone who is more appropriate or whatever. Say a gay couple wants to get married, a chaplain can't. Their unit's chaplain is a Southern Baptist, and of course will not do that. To refer them to a Unitarian, some other chaplain, or in the case of like some kind of counseling, to a secular counselor. So a chaplain, and this is a thing where our adversaries keep making up these claims, just like in the civilian world, where they say that ministers are going to be thrown in jail for not performing gay marriages and all of this. No, no military chaplain has to do something that's against their beliefs. But the military is a bit different from the civilian world, where a civilian minister has no obligation to do anything, to refer somebody to somebody else. In the military, it's a little different, that a chaplain is there to be there for everybody and needs to refer a service member to the appropriate denomination or secular counselor, or in some way hook them up with someone who can do whatever it is they need.
So I guess that logically raises the question of what is the chaplaincy corps in the military? How reflective is it of the religious diversity of our nation?
Not at all. I mean, The chaplaincy is basically has been like overrun totally disproportionately with fundamentalist Christians. Okay, and I'm going to use somebody else's statistic here. As far as Focus on the Family, James Dobson's organization, they have this program called the Truth Project, and on the website for that, they say that they think that only 9% of professing Christians are real Christians with the biblical worldview, as they say, they're kind of Christians. Okay, so they're saying only 9% of Christians are this fundamentalist type of Christian. Okay, in the military, I would venture to guess. I can't give you an exact figure, but definitely more than half of the chaplains are some sort of fundamentalist denominations. It's completely disproportionate to the breakdown of the military overall.
So I've never been a member of any of the branches of the military, and therefore I get my impressions through pop culture. But the character from the television show MASH, it's Father Mulcahy was his name, was portrayed as a very liberal kind of guy.
Right.
I think what you're trying to say is we're not going to find a lot of Father Mulcahys in today's
No.
service.
No. Definitely not. I mean, there are some, but there's these fundamentalists. It's their way or no way, and and their goal is to proselytize and convert. Like I was saying, that the Focus on the Family program, the Truth Project, we got a lot of complaints about that. For some reason, the Army in particular was really pushing that, and a few years ago, for some reason, they were really pushing it on the soldiers in Kuwait. Okay, and what that program is, that's not to convert non-Christians to be Christians. That's a program to convert the not right kind of Christians to be the right kind of Christians in the Focus on the Family's eyes. So we were getting a lot of complaints about that for quite a while. So it's not a matter of Christians. And Murph is constantly like, "Oh, you anti-Christian organization. We hate all Christians and whatever." No. What we fight are a specific kind of Christians who, as my boss, Mikey Weinstein, often says, do things that are not in the appropriate time, place, and manner. In other words, a chaplain expressing something as a theological view in a religious service of his denomination can say things that are in the sense of them being a theological view. Okay? What happens, though, is this has gone to the point of it's not just in chapels, it's everywhere. It's at mandatory formations, and also some of the chaplains are going to the extreme of almost giving marching orders. You got to face it. This is all stemming, the increase in problems is stemming from the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It's their retaliation to Don't Ask, Don't Tell being repealed. So there's an awful lot of homophobic stuff. We just had somebody alert us to on a chaplain's Facebook page, telling people there was a picture of a rainbow flag, one of those rainbow flags that looks like a United States flag, but it's got the rainbow, and encouraging soldiers at that base to go and torch that flag. So here we have a chaplain, active duty chaplain, telling people in the military, hey, why doesn't somebody go destroy the property of someone else on this base? That kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about as far as, something being said as a theological statement in a church service, as opposed to, inciting people to take action against, the LGBT. And we leave the T off because transgenders are not yet serving openly, although it's looking like that's coming soon. But but yeah, I mean, but then we get, of course, labels. We want all Christian chaplains out of the military and this and that. No, we've never said anything like that.
Let me restate what I think you just said. A chaplain was encouraging an act of violence against property at a military base, meaning the property was at a military base as well.
Yeah, it was on a flag. The flag was on a house that's base housing. Yes.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that's going on. These are the kind of chaplains we're talking about, and yeah, this is the reality. That's just, there are many, many, many more like them. Not all of them would be stupid enough to put on their Facebook page, something encouraging soldiers to go do destruction of property, but some are, and this one was.
So, Don't Ask, Don't Tell took effect over 20 years ago, and that was the formal, for lack of a better term, that was the allowing of closeted homosexuals into the military. Did we see any similar eruptions over that?
Honestly, I don't know. I haven't really read about it. I mean, this is long before I got involved with any of this, but I don't recall hearing the kind of stuff you hear now. And, but like I said, I wasn't paying as close attention to it then. But no, it was the repeal was when things really hit the fan as far as we have there's a caucus in our Congress called you can Google it, the Congressional Prayer Caucus, that's headed by Representative Randy Forbes of Virginia. And this is a quarter of our House of Representatives. Okay, so like 1 out of every 4 members of our House of Representatives belongs to this thing called the Congressional Prayer Caucus. These are the people that when you hear of the really crazy legislation, and whether it's to do with science or the reproductive rights, any issue just about minimum wage, Jesus would be against the minimum wage and all this kind of crazy crap, right? You can bet your life that it's either been introduced or the co-sponsors are members of this thing called the Congressional Prayer Caucus. Well, what happened in 2013 was that when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, they really started looking for ways to pretty much like undermine it, okay, undermine the repeal. In 2013, Representative John Fleming, okay, I think he's from Louisiana, another member of the Prayer Caucus, introduced an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. What this amendment would have done had it passed, it didn't, fortunately, would have been to tie the hands of commanders so that they could not prevent any hate, discrimination, anything against gay, bisexual, lesbian service members. Okay, so basically they're trying to get around the Don't Ask, Don't Tell having been repealed.
So they're trying to create a legal exemption to allow Christianity to be a religion of hate and bigotry.
Quite well put. That's exactly what they're doing. What they did was they would have changed the language of a part of the Title 10, which is covers the military in the U.S. Code, would have changed the language from the a commander being able to do something when there's a threat to good order and discipline, okay, to there actually having to already have been harm done to good order and discipline. Meaning that a commander, seeing that there's trouble brewing, would be unable to do anything to stop it before something actually happened. Which would have been, and Obama objected to it very strongly when this was, and then similar proposals have been made by other members of the Prayer Caucus. Every year when the National Defense Authorization Act comes around, they try to sneak some of this in, although this year I don't think they did. I think they finally gave up. But But yeah, and they'll always put it under the title of the Religious Freedom Act or Religious Liberty Amendment, or title it something that sounds like that when it's like anything but.
Does the support from Congress seem to go in lockstep with the fundamentalist Christian activity in the military?
Yeah, well, they formed an alliance in 2013. An organization was formed that was like 24 of the big fundamentalist Christian organizations, like the Family Research Council, the American Family Association, all of those organizations put out this report called Clear and Present Danger about, it was all these like made up or misrepresented stories of Christians being persecuted in the military. And it was all to coincide with the pushing of this Fleming Amendment in 2013, and they had this big press conference. And since then, in like Armed Forces Committee hearings and all of that, these members of the Prayer Caucus have repeated these lies and exaggerated stories, made up stories. Basically, it's just like what you hear with these cases in the civilian world, where these claims of Christian persecution, and then you find out that the real story is not anything like the alarmist story that you heard on Fox News or from the Drudge Report or whatever, or WorldNet Daily, or so it's basically the same thing. It's just to do with the military.
So, Chris, we need to take a little program break here. Can we ask you to listen in while we tell our viewers a little bit about the show's sponsors?
Sure.
We've got about 20 minutes left in the program, and in case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. Shows are live most Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Knoxville Community Access Channel 12 or Channel 194, depending upon your local cable network. And I think we heard that it's even down in the Tellico Plains area on yet another channel. But your out-of-town friends can see us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
This is a call-in show, and we are live today, August 11, 2015, and viewers can call in now to the number on the screen with a short comment or question.
And actually, we have to contradict. We can't, because we're interviewing our guest on the line. So viewers will have to merely be patient and hope that we ask the questions you wanted. All right, we're going to skip doing the little video today, and I'm going to say that the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 2 times a week. We have evening meetups for fun, food, drink, and conversation. ASK's purpose is to supply a venue for community camaraderie and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded individuals. Our Tuesday meeting is going on right now at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria in the Knoxville Old City.
The Sunday of most months is Skeptics Book Club. The title of September book is Culture Wars, The Threat to Your Family and Your Freedom by Marie Elena Castle. Sunday, September 13th at 2 p.m. The public is invited to participate. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps. Visit rationalist.org to find the rest of the calendar of books and join us at the new location, Books A Million, 8513 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Both the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee help provide a social outlet where you'll find that if you don't believe in Zeus or follow Zoroaster or you say yuck to Yahweh,
you are not alone.
All right. Well, today we're not alone here in the studio. We have a call-in guest. You're going to say her name because I'm going to mangle it if I try.
Chris Rodda, Senior Research Director from the Military Religious Freedom Foundation.
All right. Well, Chris, so you mentioned a book, and I'm trying to remember if it's actually been one of our book club books. Tell us about the title of that book.
Oh, my book, Liars for Jesus, the Religious Right's Alternate Version of American History, that debunks all the history lies you hear from David Barton and the other people that they're not true. Well, I debunk in detail. I'm actually working on Volume 2 as we speak. Literally, it's up on my computer screen. It's basically, if you need to argue with these fundamentalists about these history claims they're making, I really wrote it as a reference book, and funny, find myself using it as a reference book myself, even though I wrote it. And I've also written a couple other little books about Jefferson, debunking that book, David Barton's The Jefferson Lies, the one that got pulled by its own publisher. And a lot of articles also I've written on Huffington Post elsewhere about the history stuff. And then other books, my boss, Mikey Weinstein, the head of Murph, his books, I'm going to get the title right. His first book, With God on Our Side, One Man's War Against an Evangelical Christian Coup in America's Military. That's the book that tells the story of how Murph started and all of that with the stuff with his sons at the Air Force Academy. I highly recommend that, not just because my boss wrote it, but it's a very good book. And also very recently, just last year, Mikey's wife, Bonnie, came out with a book called To the Far-Right Christian Hater, You Can Be a Good Speller or a Hater, but You Can't Be Both. And that is a collection of some of the best hate mail received by Murph. And both of these are available on Amazon. I think they're also available on the Murph website.
All right. Well, being gifted with, how shall we say, novel spelling myself, I can perhaps sometimes feel sympathy for such people, but I very much dislike shoddy reasoning, which is the thing that I have often noticed in the Christian love letters.
Yes.
So, what caused you? So your book "Liars for Jesus" sounds interesting, and was there a precipitating event that caused you to write a book on that subject?
Yeah, well, it's kind of weird. I had never had any intention of being a writer. I used to be in a totally different field of work, and one day I was about back around 2002. I was back in the days of the old AOL message boards. Remember those? You'd be click on a news story, there'd be a message board. This is that long ago. And I was just, waiting for a phone call or something, and clicked on a story about, remember Judge Roy Moore's Ten Commandments rock down in Alabama?
Yeah,
clicked on a story, and it led to a message board. I set some time to kill, and I'd always been interested in American history enough that I knew that what I was seeing on this message board was insane. And then I started kind of arguing with some people, and it led to me debating people and writing longer and longer posts on these message boards, and then starting to actually footnote these posts. And then people started contacting me thinking I was some sort of expert, and eventually a number of people on those message boards, one in particular who happened to be he's a Lutheran minister who ended up writing the foreword to my book, said, you should really write a book. And I'm thinking, this is insane because I've never written anything before in my life. And somehow he and a couple other people convinced me that I could write a book, and I did. So, having no idea what it would lead to, but my friend said, hey, you don't know what it'll lead to. It'll lead to something, and it led to me working for Murph.
All right. So what would be the most common kind of lie that you cite as being tossed out there?
Well, the usual ones, the Congress printed Bibles for schools, and
I've never heard
some
that
of the
one.
other ones, the one I'm actually, like I said, I have the volume 2 that I'm working with up on my computer screen right now. Right, the one where Jefferson dated all of his documents in the year of our Lord Christ, and there's so many of them, and but they have a purpose. I mean, like the purpose of all of this stuff is political, to get people to vote against their best interests by convincing the masses of evangelical Christians out there that all of these crazy things that they want to pass and crazy people they want to get elected, that all of this is justified by history. Because most Christians are not liars. They need to be convinced, to genuinely believe this revisionist history to really feel like they're doing the right thing by voting the way they're voting. So it's all politically motivated. And David Barton, the king of the history revisionists, actually has, just today, his radio show was going after Mikey and Murph. He's gotten quite vocal about going after Murph in recent months, or about the past year or so. And today he called Mikey because Mikey had referred to some of these chaplains as homosexual bigots. And so now David Barton went on this little rant calling Mikey a heterosexual bigot, which was hilarious because, of course, Mikey is a heterosexual who's been married for, like 36 years or something. And, so yeah, Barton has gotten very involved with coming up with these lists of lies about what's going on in the military, and the lies about Mikey, lies about Murph, and it's a frequent topic of his radio show.
Are any of these books available or known to be widely available in military installation libraries?
I did check on WorldCat that Mikey's first book is in the libraries at the different service academies, the Air Force Academy, West Point, and Annapolis. His wife Bonnie's book is not in any of them, but if you do a check of David Barton's books, you'll find them in all sorts of military-based libraries, his books, his videos, his, and if you look, not even just the libraries, the PXs and BXs on military bases and military-based bookstores, constant, the fundamentalist Christian books, and, it's pushed everywhere.
We mentioned a Master Chief Petty Officer Bob, who did not provide a last name, who retired and was
from the Coast Guard.
An ordained minister in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Oh, I think I saw the photo of him with the colander on his head, I think, at some point. And, of course, we'll get beat up for not going after him for promoting his religion. But what he did was obviously in good humor and was not, telling his subordinates that they needed to worship the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Yes.
Are there, and we mentioned Arian Foster,
Football
an
player.
outed atheist from the NFL. Are there any openly atheist or agnostic military leaders? If not, why isn't this more of a concern?
There are some out atheists in the military, and there are some who don't feel as if they can be. We have at the Air Force Academy, the insane thing of each year, there's a group, there's about 100 cadets who actually pretend to be fundamentalist Christians just to pass through and get by and not get harassed. It's like underground kind of, easier just to pretend you're one of them. Leave some Christian CDs around your, room and go to their weekly SPIRE, special programs in religious education, one night a week at the Air Force Academy. Is all the religious groups come in and, stuff like that. And, just the fact that these cadets, the honor code that you're not supposed to lie is such an important thing, and they're being forced to lie.
Yeah, I seem to remember hearing that
there was some kind of a pagan worship facility constructed at the Air Force Academy that got just immediately vandalized.
Oh yeah, and then there was the big lie about that it cost that the Air Force Academy spent $80,000 on it and all of that, which was, first of all, wasn't true. That it was work that needed to be done, something to do with preventing flooding of the chapel, something like that. And there was this circle with the rocks it was made into. It was just a good location for it, so they allowed it, and they did this, which was great. Well, almost immediately, somebody placed a big wood cross on the circle, you know.
About what time frame would this have been?
Oh, that was a couple years ago, several years ago.
So, is there still sort of ongoing contention over that spot, do you know?
Not that I've heard of recently.
So the pagan stone circle has been freed of its transitory cross.
You know, I can't say for sure. I mean, I just there could have. I mean, I just haven't since that one major incident. I'm just not recalling anything else about that. Other than the fact that it's continually used as the lies about it, like in that report that the Family Research Council put out that all the congressmen were using. I believe there's something about it saying that it cost $80,000 and all of this, you know, ridiculous stuff.
Is there any record of a commander or a chaplain being formally disciplined for forcing religious beliefs? It's just something I've not really heard of.
There have been, you know, some successes we've had as far as people being, I don't know if I'd say disciplined, because it's basically more the slap on the wrist. Like when I first came on board with Murph back in 2007, I don't know if you remember, there was the big scandal, the Christian embassy at the Pentagon, where those 7 officers made a video for Campus Crusade for Christ military Christian embassy, and the DODIG did find that they had violated a number of regulations, but as far as we know, none of them, there were no repercussions. They said they should be, you know, punished appropriately, whatever the hell that. There was nothing specific about what should be done, and then we kind of followed them after that. One of them saw that what they did was wrong and has since actually become very good at preventing it, this kind of stuff where he is now. 2 of the others, one in particular, got quickly promoted to, I think he's now a lieutenant general, 3-star general, who has not stopped at all as far as still doing the same stuff that he, you know, was doing then. So, but no, there was no punishment. These people got promoted quickly after it, and whatever.
Alrighty. We're coming down to about 5 minutes left. I've got a question here I want to ask, and I want to make sure that you get a chance to talk about things that we didn't ask. But there's a photo I got off of the MRFF website of you, and it's got next to it text. Let me read it. It says, "Who called it spiritual rape to force your religion on others? The answer may surprise you." So, although I wish we could quiz our viewers and have them call in, tell us what that's all about.
Okay. Well, one of like I said, we have these certain congressmen, Forbes, Fleming, and some of the others in this Congressional Prayer Caucus, who will actually, like, on the floor of the House of Representatives and in Armed Services Committee, you know, hearings, will go after, you know, Mikey Weinstein uses some kind of colorful language, a lot of adjectives and adverbs, and so he will, on several occasions, has called what's going on in the military, this forced proselytization and unwanted proselytization, spiritual rape. So that's one of the ones that these congressmen and others use when they really want to make Mikey sound like, this extremist. Like, he called it, spreading the gospel, spiritual rape, and all of this. Well, me, of course, with my history research, I come across things. And who called it spiritual rape also was Roger Williams. Guy that founded Rhode Island.
Yes.
It was booted out of Massachusetts. You know the story of Roger Williams. Well, so here we have Roger Williams in the 1600s, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I found in his writings where he called exactly what we're talking about, this kind of coerced conformity to a particular religion. He used the exact words spiritual rape to describe it.
All righty. Well, we've got just a few minutes left. Is there any questions that you wish we'd ask you, or do you have any hate mail that you might remember and share with us?
Hate mail. We have lots of hate mail. Actually, if people go to our the MRF website, if you go to mrff.org, you can watch we have hate mail videos read by, her name is Rachel, and she does a phenomenal job of reading Murph's hate mail. But I actually pulled up, we also have some printed ones on our website.
And I must warn you that, we must watch our language on this program. We are constrained to that. So censor where appropriate. After all, these are Christians.
Let's see. Well, I got to tell you, Christians of this ilk swear more than I do, and I swear a lot. Let's see.
Well, read what you can.
Okay, wait. Here's one with no swearing in it. It was one from 2013. It says, Mikey, cannot wait until you're made dead, Y-O-U-R, and punted to hell by the Lamb, where you'll burn forever for forsaking, F-O-U-R, saking Jesus' love for you and for keeping our army under spell of your father Satan. Very soon now. Oh, and we pray your whole family and the MFRR is made dead by the Prince of Peace, and also burn with you naked in hell for time immemorial.
The love just
this
walks
is the
off
typical.
Of that
There's other ones, but if you have a swearing policy, I probably could not read 90% of these emails without having to bleep myself.
Was that in caps, by the way?
Oh, no, that wasn't in caps. It was actually, oddly, in all lowercase, including the first words of sentences.
All right.
With some punctuation.
All righty. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. We're at about the 1 minute mark here, so we need to begin the wrap up. And it's so viewers, get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Faithless Forrest.
I'm Chad Headley. Please send us feedback. Leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
You can see the show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this Knoxville station and at about 2100 Greenwich Mean Time worldwide, ctvknox.org.
The opinions expressed on this show are of the host and guests, not any official opinion of Ask or RET. We would like to thank our viewers. Send thanks to Sam, Jonas, and the staff at CTV Knox, and to all our callers.
All right, and especially thank you, Chris, for calling in and sharing this time with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me on.